Hey guys, what's up? I'm here with a review of a Japanese comedy horror film from 2000 based on the manga of the same name, and tonight's movie is Uzumaki, or Uzumaki, I believe. Sorry if I mispronounced it. Also known as The Spiral. And now, the reason I'm covering the film is because I got the first volume of it from a friend of mine, Chloe. And she was nice enough to buy it for me for Christmas. I read the first volume. I actually finished reading it today. And I immediately got home and decided to look and find the movie online. I found it. And we're gonna watch it. And then I'm going to hopefully enjoy it. So, yeah, basically this movie follows the same plot as the manga. This small town is kind of, I guess, according to one of the characters in the manga, which I'm going to directly quote him, this town is corrupted by spirals, the spiral shape, and it kind of drives residents insane, causing them to just kind of like commit suicide and all this other crazy shit. If you really want to know, then read the manga. It's definitely worth reading. Now let's check out the movie. So the film opens with an intro from our main character, Kyrie. Kyrie, I guess. And she's narrating about how something strange happened in her hometown. And then we get a shot of a dead guy kind of laying on the floor at the bottom of a giant spiral staircase. I assume he fell or jumped or something like that. And then we meet Kyrie, and she's going off to meet her friend who's coming into town. You know, they've been friends since, like, kindergarten, stuff like that. And, I mean, as of this point, we're only 4 minutes in, and so far, it's following the manga pretty well. Other than the dead guy at the beginning, and someone jumping out and scaring her while she's on the way to meet her friend, and the fact that she isn't meeting her friend at the train station. Other than those few things, it's following it pretty well so far. But then again, we're only 4 minutes in. So basically what happens is she meets the guy, and they go to a park, you know, and they ride around on his bike and stuff, and they talk. You know, it's a really peaceful, kind of cool scene. She goes to a fruit stand and buys some fruit or something to make for dinner, and heads home to where her friend's father is at the house, praising her father, who is like a potter. Who is a potter. He makes, you know, clay pots and stuff. And he's like, will you make a spiral bowl or plate for me? I really, really need this. And he acting really creepy about it and like filming the guy, and I realized that the camera I have, I mean, it doesn't look exactly like it, but it looks very, very similar to the camera he was using, and I got a little creeped out for a second. So she has dinner with her father, and in this adaptation, her mother is dead. In the manga, her mother is not dead. Basically, she goes to bed, but before she goes to bed, she looks through a photo album, and there's like these kind of creepy, like, stop motion animation scenes where she's like remembering stuff she did with her friend when they were younger. She goes to school the next day, and the guy that tried to scare her on the way home tries to scare her again and tries to ask her out, and then he kills himself, and he's the dead guy from the beginning of the movie. Kyrie and her guy friend, who has the insane father, talk about his dad, who has become obsessed with the spiral, and it's gotten so bad that he started collecting like everything, every spiral he sees, snail shells and all that. And let's just say after that it becomes a bit of a body horror film. So, honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I was not 100% disappointed in this movie. It isn't an exact adaptation, like frame for frame or word for word. I mean, that's very, very hard to do unless you're Robert Rodriguez and you're adapting Sin City. But today we're talking manga, not comic books. Although technically speaking, they are the same thing. Fucking autofocus. Okay, there we go. So, yeah. It isn't, I mean, the scenes that are kind of copied straight from the manga, like, there are a few scenes that I noticed, and I was like, oh yeah, that looks almost exactly the same as it does in the manga. And, I mean, it's done right. It has a very nice color palette to it, and the stories that they adapt from the manga, which they only adapt the stories from the first volume, which is good because I've only read the first volume, so I don't want to spoil anything else for me. Although there was something else in there that might have been from one of the other mangas, possibly. But it's not as grotesque as its manga counterpart, and it's still good. The acting and writing are okay. They're not absolutely amazing. Really, there's nothing spectacular here. I mean, the camera work and lighting, sound mix, music, all that's really, really good. The effects, what there is of, like, blood and gore is pretty good. And what there is of, like, CGI is kind of mediocre, but then again, we're talking like late 90s, early 2000s CGI, and I mean, I don't know what the budget was for this movie, but I'm going to assume it wasn't a ton. Really, the movie has a really cool kind of style to it, though. A really cool kind of visual style. A visual style I would compare to something like Dead Girl. I would compare it to something like Dead Girl. How Dead Girl has that very kind of cool, colorful look, while at the same time it's very gray and monotone and diluted kind of colors. It has that, and in the scenes where it's like inside and stuff, it has more of a like kind of greenish gray, kind of vomit green kind of shade going on, and I really dig that. The style really adds a cool touch to the movie and a really creepy look. And honestly, if it wasn't for the really mediocre, like bad early 2000s like CGI and these somewhat comedic moments in this movie would legitimately be creepy. This movie would actually be kind of creepy. I mean, it still has a little bit of creepiness on its own. It's still a little eerie. But I honestly, I want this film to be remade, modern day, and I want it to be, more true to the manga and even more grotesque and gross and violent. I mean, the manga isn't, it isn't fucking Dead Alive level of violence. It's more like From Beyond level of body horror transformations and stuff like that. So, yeah, now, I will admit that it does fail supremely when it comes to adapting probably one of the best mangas I've ever read. I haven't even finished reading the entire series, and I would still say this is probably one of the best ones I've ever read, probably because it's one of the only horror mangas I've ever read. But that is besides the point. It really fails in capturing the true horror of Junji Ito's kind of style and his art. I mean, his artwork is absolutely fantastic, and his manga, and the mangas he works on are always look really nice and really creepy, and they just look perfect. I mean, it really doesn't capture the real crazy, creepy violentness of the manga. So honestly, if I had to recommend like something, one over the other, the movie or the manga, definitely the manga. Go for that first. Well, you know what? I'd say go for the movie first, because the movie is kind of eases you into the story a bit. you get familiar with the characters and everything, and then I'm not gonna say I like reading the. I'm not gonna say I like watching the movies before reading the books, but for a lot of the movies I've seen, I usually have seen the movies before reading the books. A Clockwork Orange, The Shining, Pet Sematary. And shit, I don't know. But I mean, there are a lot of movies that I really really like that are based on books that I saw the movie before reading the book, and I think the books are. I mean, I usually think the books are better, but still, I'd still recommend the manga as well as the book, as well as this movie. Really, it isn't, and it has one of those endings that really divides the audience. It's one of those endings where people will either think that was a really shitty kind of put together at the last minute kind of stupid ending, and then there's other people that are like, it was okay, and then it will divide, and you get the people that were just like, yeah, that ending was actually pretty good. Now, usually the majority goes with the shitty ending. I'm sticking with the it's okay. It's not absolutely amazing, fantastic, or anything like that. On the gore meter from 1 to 10, 1 being something like The Corpse Grinders, and 10 being something like Brain Dead. Uzumaki. Sorry. Uzumaki is probably about a 4. There's a little bit of body horror kind of transformations going on. There's a small bit of self-mutilation in there. There's the scene where the guy jumps off the thing and you see his brains and blood splatter on the pavement. Honestly, I'd say give this one a chance. If you are a fan of the manga and you are interested in seeing the movie, I'd say give it at least a fair chance. Just know it isn't as, it isn't as dark or scary as or I don't want to say scary because I didn't find the manga actually scary, but it isn't as horrific as the manga. I'd probably have to say somewhere between 3.5 and 4 out of 5 stars, because I don't want to, because while I do think this movie is supremely overrated, like, supremely overrated, supremely underrated. One of those films that, people, fans of the manga have just been like, oh, this movie is absolutely terrible. And people just kept saying that. But I don't want to go with what I did for Halloween 3 and say that this movie, and give this movie a really high rating and say, fuck the system, I don't care what, I don't care what people think of it. I think it's underrated. While I do think this one is underrated, and I do think it's very, very underrated, I do not think it's underrated enough to get a 10 from me. Anyway, guys, I've ranted long enough. I'm BiscuitBoo69. The links to the Facebook page, Tumblr, Twitter, all that, and Rotten Cotton t-shirts, where I get my horror film t-shirts and exploitation film t-shirts, are all in the description below. So I'm signing off. I'll see you guys in the near future. Peace.